Jay-Z has one of the craziest family encounter structure stories in all of hip-hop, and potentially entertainment. His raps have hinted at this, with lyrics many dove into and others glossed over, but today we look over it all. Sean Carter, later known as Jay-Z, was born on December 4th, 1969 in Brooklyn. Jay-Z was the youngest one in his family. Jay-Z's father, Adnis Reeves, left the family when Jay-Z was approximately 11 years old, and Hov's mom had to raise 4 kids all by herself in the depths of crime-infested Marcy projects. On the bright side, Jay's family was really into music, which helped him find the craft very early on in his life. Add to this the fact that Jay's home was basically a party house where loud music was played oftentimes, and you'll understand how deeply music was embedded in his life. Even though Jay-Z's father left the family when it mattered the most for Hov, he left a big record collection that got Jay-Z into the arts. I grew up in Marcy projects in Brooklyn, and my mom and pop had an extensive record collection. So Michael Jackson and Stevie Wonder and all of those sounds and souls of Motown filled the house. However, it would be unfair to undermine the events that took place before Hov's father's departure. Pops didn't announce he was leaving, recalled Jay-Z. I found out what really happened later. His brother Ray had gotten killed. Life in urban areas, he got stabbed. It really sent him into a spiral, and he could go out and look for the guy. My mom would tell him, "You have a family here. You can't go out there." He couldn't deal with that pain and left anyway. Personal issues and the search for revenge for his fallen brother caused a huge rift between Hov's parents, and over the years their relationship became worse to the point of no return. And Adnis decided to leave the family for the street life for good. Adnis started taking drugs, allegedly heroin, and that, coupled with the recent loss of a close relative, turned Hov's dad into a whole different person. As Jay-Z described it, he lost his soul. Jay-Z's mother, on the other hand, never gave up on him or couldn't give up on him. Hov was one of the best students among his classmates, with his biggest strength, ironically, being English. Jay-Z also found a lot of friends in the Marcy projects and spent a lot of time hooping and playing dice with them. That also marked the time Jay got into rap music and started writing some of his first rhymes, but kept them to himself. He had improvised music sessions late at night at the kitchen, banging out drum patterns and mumbling bars over them. Hov's mom noticed her son's passion for music and bought him a boombox as a birthday present. Sadly, good grades, friends, and a newfound hobby weren't enough to keep Jay-Z from getting to know the street life firsthand. After Hov's father left the family, things were never quite the same for Jay. The open-hearted and cheerful kid he always was became introverted and distant due to it. Jay felt the frustration and anger towards his father and couldn't process what happened. When you're growing up, your dad is your superhero. Once you've let yourself fall that in love with someone, once you put him on such a high pedestal and he lets you down, you never want to experience that pain again. So I remember just being really quiet and really cold, never wanting to let myself get close to someone like that again. Hov said that he carried that feeling throughout his whole life until one important thing happened that we'll cover a bit later in the video. The 11-year-old felt the urge to step up and take on his father's responsibilities. Jay felt like he had to become the breadwinner for his family. To quote Jay-Z's lyrics from the streets, "Before I knew it, had my pop's trousers on, that's how we do it when the man of the house is gone. You either stand or fall, I chose to stand." Jay took on the role of his mother's guardian, always reassuring her that Jay would eventually make it to the big leagues and bring riches to his family. Sadly, there wasn't much a kid could do, so Jay had to resort to 2 things: selling drugs and improving his rap skills, so he could kickstart his future career. While writing raps was definitely the more innocent of the two, selling crack was nowhere near the experience a teenager should be going through. However, it seemed like it was inevitable for Jay to dodge the hustle as he spent his teen years at the height of the crack epidemic that took over the country and the area he lived in. There wasn't any place you could go for isolation or a break. You go in the hallway, crackheads in the hallway. You look out in the puddles on the curbs, crack vials are littered in the side of the curbs. You could smell it in the hallways, that putrid smell. I can't explain it, but it's still in my mind when I think about it. Add the tough situation Jay's family was in at the time to this environment, and you'll get the perfect recipe for disaster. Even though Hov himself says at no point his family was starving, it was all about the quality of life, the simple things. Sometimes we paid the light bill, sometimes we paid the phone, sometimes the gas went off. We weren't starving, we were eating, we were okay, but it was things like you didn't want to be embarrassed when you went to school. You didn't want to have dirty sneakers or wear the same clothes over again. That situation gave young Jay all the motivation in the world to support his family, even if it meant hustling relentlessly on the streets. Interestingly, nowadays, Jay-Z says that he got a majority of his business skills from selling drugs, as Hov always felt on the, quote, edge of a sword, having no room for error. He had to make smart, calculated, and careful decisions very quickly. Otherwise, he could get behind bars or get shot and killed. This led to Jay-Z being, in his own words, a very talented dealer, although it took some time until Jay-Z's hustle started to pay off. Through Jay's whopping 15 years of hustling on the streets, he was shot at least 3 times, and numerous close friends of Jay got locked up or even killed. At one point in his life, drugs and crack in particular were practically engraved in his life, not only due to the fact that it was his literal job for more than a decade, and Jay's dad started abusing substances, but because his own brother Eric was a raging crackhead at one point as well. As a self-declared guardian of the family, Jay had to deal with his brother's acts on a daily basis. Jay mentioned in his songs that he and Eric were fighting often, although it wasn't anything serious, and Jay always thought about it as a way of toughening up. However, as Jay's brother's addiction got stronger, things went out of control really quickly. Being one of the most addictive drugs there are, crack became the top priority in Eric's life, and soon he started to take things from the family house to get money in exchange and eventually buy more and more substances. It had been going like that for years, until one incident. Eric snuck into the room he shared with Jay and stole his $200 ring. Jay-Z saw that, and a heated confrontation ensued. Things got out of hand quickly, and in the moment of accumulated anger, sadness, and frustration after seeing his brother make trouble for his mother and other siblings, Jay took the gun, pointed it at Eric, and squeezed the trigger. Thankfully, the bullet missed all the vital organs and went into Eric's arm instead. As Hov later recalled, he was, quote, never aiming to kill his brother, but definitely wanted to hurt him in a heated moment. In the end, the situation was probably for the better for Hov's family, as it was a moment for Jay-Z to realize how important it is to control his emotions, especially anger. And for Eric, on the other hand, it was some kind of a wake-up call that paved the way to his path for recovery from the addiction. However, at the moment it felt, quote, like the end of his life for Jay, and he thought that he would certainly go behind bars. However, Eric came to his senses and showed some compassion and understanding toward his family, not pressing any charges after his recovery, and even apologizing for the emotional, financial, and physical damage he inflicted upon them. Quoting Jay's biography, Decoded, "Since that incident, I've never lost it like that. That's the one thing to this day I regret." Despite all the negativity and chaos drugs brought into Jay's early life, his life wasn't centered exclusively around those substances. As I mentioned earlier, Jay had a lot of interest in music, especially hip-hop at a young age, and his mother supported his hobby. Hov's interest grew into a real passion, and he did everything he could to at least find a bit of time between attending school, trying to get good grades, and trading crack in the area to keep his family financially afloat. Jay was reading dictionaries, tons of books, and anything he could get his hands on to upgrade his pen game. That, coupled with his natural knack for being a wordsmith, made him a very talented young rapper who was known for his signature freestyling skills. "Everywhere I went, I'd write. If I was crossing the street with my friends and a rhyme came to me, I'd break out my binder, spread it on a mailbox or lamppost, and write the rhyme before I crossed the street." If there was no notebook with him, Jay-Z would run to the corner store, buy something, then find a pen to write it on the back of the brown paper bag. Jay wasn't alone in his path to the top though. His childhood friend and mentor Jazzo was the one who showed young Jay the way. "I connected with an older kid who had a reputation as the best rapper in Marcy. Jazz was his name, and we started practicing our rhymes into a heavy-ass tape recorder with a makeshift mic attached." Later, as Hov got bigger in the game, he wanted to pay homage to the area he grew up in and his mentor Jazzo, combining his friend's nickname with the name of a Jay-Z subway station near his home to create the iconic Jay-Z moniker he uses to this day. Jay was persistent, never stopped grinding, working on his skills, which has paid off tremendously in the years to come. Jay-Z used all the experience he gained through those years in a positive way and redirected his energy to a good cause, using his resources to help communities all over the country fight the struggles he faced as a kid and a young man. Also, an old myth going around the internet for possibly decades now, Jay-Z never sold crack to his mom. Fans simply misinterpreted Jay's lyrics from the song You Must Love Me, where Jay gives his brother a shout out for motivating him. "All you did was motivate me. Don't let him hold you back. What I do, I turned around and I sold you crack. I was a bastard for that. Still I'm drowning in shame." due to the controversy surrounding the lyrics, Jay had to explain exactly what he meant later. The lyric was a metaphor for all the mothers he sold crack to when he was a drug dealer, for which Hov is, quote, drowning in shame to this day. It wasn't about Jay-Z's literal mom, but rather a community as a whole. Hov's mom was arguably the most supportive and overall important person in Jay-Z's path to greatness. She was always there for him, and Jay-Z showed her the same level of gratitude. Jay-Z's mom, Gloria Carter, was on a quest of her own, trying to build a better future not only for herself but her 4 kids, all alone without any support after dealing with the breakup of her kid's father. She would work multiple jobs, often taking extra hours to keep her children warm. The financial struggle wasn't the only thing she had to go through at the time though, because she also faced a deep personal dilemma regarding her attraction, you could call it. So Gloria always felt, or claims that she always felt now, that she leaned towards women rather than a man, although she says she tried to live her life in a more orthodox way, settling down with a man and having kids with him. As you could have guessed, things didn't go well and the two eventually broke up. After years spent alone, Gloria started to reconsider her life choices, and given her previous experience with Jay's father, this time she didn't want to go the same route. Although Gloria wasn't ready to face the backlash from her relatives, friends, and society in general, she chose to, quote, stay in the closet for decades to come. In Jay-Z's own words, even though Hov and his mom have always been good friends who talk like real friends often, they got even closer after Gloria came out as being attracted to women, which some also have the theory that this wasn't something that was always there and just became birthed after her terrible experience, or what she felt was a terrible experience with Jay's father. We never spoke about it until like recently. Now we start having these beautiful conversations and just really getting to know each other. And then she was sharing that she was in love. She can be herself now. She doesn't have to hide for her kids or feel like she's embarrassing her kids. It was a much different time then. Now she can just live her full life, her whole life, and be her. Jay decided to support his mom, and he hinted about knowing about it pretty much since his early teenage years. As soon as Gloria made it official, her son, the first question Jay asked was, "That had to be a horrible life, Ma." While Gloria's answer was, "My life was never horrible, it was just different." Jay was so moved by his mom's story that he made a song on 444 about it the very next day. Mama had 4 kids, but she's a lesbian, had to pretend so long that she's a thespian, had to hide in the closet so she medicate. Jay's acceptance of his mother helped her be more open about her private life, and soon she told Jay about her new partner, Roxanne Wilshire. In 2023, with the bond that Jay-Z has with his mom, he was at the wedding of Gloria Carter, who married her longtime partner, Roxanne Wilshire, and he was present with Beyonce and his kids. Jay's siblings were there as well, and despite all the bad things that happened between Hov and his brother Eric, he became clean, and he's also a family man who's a completely different person from who he was over 3 decades ago. Jay-Z's sisters are pretty much the opposite of their younger brother, as they have virtually no public presence at all, although Jay has never seemed like he wanted public presence as much as he wanted success, because even as famous as he is, he tries to stay out of the limelight as much as possible. However, from time to time, fans do get the opportunity to spot Jay's sisters hanging out with his family, so we can say that they're still at least relatively close. As we mentioned in the beginning of this video, Jay-Z was heavily impacted by his father's departure from the family, and it had a huge influence on him up until his adulthood. In 2003, Jay-Z's mother set up a meeting for him and his dad, Adnis. According to Jay, he wasn't fond of the idea of meeting his dad, saying, "I'm a grown man, I don't need a dad now." Hov reflected that he perhaps still had a lot of resentment and anger toward his dad even after so many years, and didn't want to deal with the problem his father's absence created, but at the end of the day, he did agree to meet him. When the two met, Jay took it out on his dad, and he made sure Adnis got how little Hov felt when his dad left him. At first, Jay's dad refused to take any responsibility for his wrongs, but he changed his mind throughout the conversation and apologized to him. It was the exact moment that Adnis told Jay-Z about the whole story behind him leaving the family. The story about Jay-Z's uncle passing and his attempts to get his revenge. Jay felt immediately lighter after the meeting, and it helped him embrace Adnis as his father, although Jay knew that he didn't have much time to build the relationship from the ground. He was broken, he had a bad liver, and he knew that if he continued drinking, it would kill him, but he didn't stop. A couple of months, I got him an apartment, I was buying furniture, and he passed away. Tragically, Jay-Z couldn't fully reconcile with his father, although he had a chance to clear everything up before time was up at least. Anyway, it helped Jay tremendously in his personal life. In his words, that conversation, quote, finally let him feel free and be able to find someone to love. And of course, he eventually did. Jay's relationship and then later marriage to Beyonce has been one of the most celebrity eye-catching things in the media for fans to witness. But it went beyond that. The two found each other and have built an alliance that's lasted over 20 years, which in celebrity years might as well be 100. They've become parents to 3 children and have been arguably the most influential power couple in the entire music industry. They share a mansion in California, live in New York, make frequent public appearances, impactful appearances, and visit various events. In short, things are a far cry from what they were like back in Jay-Z's early years. There's no place for street hustle, shootings, or crack in Hove's home, obviously, and there's no place for bad fatherhood as well. In Jay-Z's words, he, quote, always makes sure that his kids feel loved and supported, as he learned in his own childhood that feeling loved is the most important thing a child needs. Now, Jay's trying to be everything he wanted his father to be when Jay was a teen: supportive, loving, caring, and most importantly, present in his kids' lives. Not to say that it didn't take Jay-Z a lot of effort to be that good of a parent. He admitted that he had to, quote, change his life tremendously as he became a father. And one of the biggest things Jay had to learn was setting his priorities straight. You're reckless with your time before having kids. You're just all over the place. And then you have to ask yourself, what are you leaving your house for? Every second that you spend, you're spending away from the development of those people that brought you here, that you love more than anything in the world. Hove also shared that he had to learn some of the most unexpected skills to be able to take care of his kids. A metaphor for our relationship with Ivy is if she ever fell in the water and I couldn't get her, I couldn't even fathom that thought. I had to learn how to swim. That's it. That was the beginning of our relationship. Sure, it would be unfair to say that things are perfect in Jay's family with Beyonce, as they've had their fair share of controversy and infidelity throughout the relationship, although those incidents are nowhere near comparable to what happened in Jay-Z's own family when he was a kid, and you could just tell that it was a testament to how badly he wanted to keep his family together that marriage was able to stay intact. Usually there are 2 ways someone can handle hardship like that early in their life. They can continue the vicious cycle and accept the way they lived as standard, which they'll later use to build their own family or break their own family, thus repeating the same mistakes from the past. Or second, they can learn from that experience and do everything possible not to put their own kids through the unnecessary struggle, even if it doesn't have to be financial. Jay-Z chose the second path, which hopefully will translate into a happy future for his kids and a fruitful family. Make sure to subscribe for more.